Hey folks, this is Soul to take you through the first few days of Dragonflight. In case you're not familiar, my sort of guides are meant to help you progress through content at a brisk pace without having to stress over every little detail while, wasting as little time as possible too. Keep in mind that the information learned here can change in the live version. Use the navigation thing to get to the section that you want to go to, like the video if it's useful, subscribe for more content, the stream, yada yada, and let's begin with some pre-launch prep. Make sure your inventory is about as empty as possible. Despite the reagent bag and the increased stack sizes, your bag is going to fill up with crap in no time. Try to have a little supply kit set up for yourself, like cooldown pods, speed pods, food, and goblin gliders. It's hardly necessary, but the cost of such things should be pretty low at the moment. There are a ton of side quests in the Dragon Isles, and you may or may not be completing them as you go along. Consider clearing most of your quest log to make room, and at the same time, write a stern letter to the WoW team demanding that they do something about the quest limit. Here's a question to consider. Should you level in War Mode? Speaking just for me, I personally don't recommend it. The XP bonus means that your work is going to be worth more experience, but one PvP death can easily set you back that much more time if time is what's important to you. Profession tools like pickaxes and hammers can be equipped on separate profession slots for benefits. This includes the Underlight Angler, the Legion artifact fishing rod that includes special perks like water walking and swimming like a fish. That means equipping it will passively grant those benefits, for better or worse. If you have it, put it on. If you don't have it or you don't have the perks, well, consider getting them unless Blizzard decides to nerf those benefits in the near future. Also, while I didn't do an exhaustive check, there doesn't seem to be a round of quests that you can pick up and hold on to for the expansion launch. It seems that the practice of doing a bunch of turn-ins right at launch for a head start on XP is all but dead. Park your butt around the dock areas of your main capital city and make sure that you complete the pre-expansion quests, which they just sum up to talking to a few people around town. When the expansion does go live, you should get a new quest to hop onto the boat or Zeppelin, and after a few minutes, the first one should arrive. Then pray the realms don't crash. Take some screenshots for posterity. Think up some memes while you wait for your first official trip to the Dragon Isles. Once you land, pick up any quests that you see, including one that should be nearby that's basically directing you to the fishing trainer, so learn Dragon Isles fishing straight away. After a brief quest line, you'll be led to an embassy of sorts where you'll get upgrades for your other trade skills. And for now, let's pause here and assess what the Dragonflight experience is going to be like. Leveling in the Dragon Isles has a similar vibe to Shadowlands. There's a main story quest, which I'll refer to as the MSQ. You follow the MSQ from zone to zone in a fixed order. Unlike Shadowlands though, this MSQ feels a little bit shorter. In fact, there's a fair likelihood that you'll hit a wall and be compelled to grind for experience before you can move on to the next main quest. There are two walls that I found, but keep in mind that this information could be outdated. To begin questing in the fourth and final leveling zone, you need to be level 66. To complete the final part of the MSQ, you need to be level 68. Now here's an important reminder. Like Shadowlands, the XP rewards from quests decay as you level up. So in a scenario where you're level 67 and in the 4th zone, if you return to the 1st zone for questing, the experience values are gonna suck. However, if you happen to complete the MSQ, but you're still not level 70, which is possible, the experience rewards from quests from all the zones will scale up to your level. You'll also unlock world quests. Now, again, I want to point out that this was tested from a few weeks ago. It's possible that the minor details here could change. In this guide, I'll suggest a few general approaches to leveling. Which path you take depends mostly on what you intend to do in endgame, and these approaches are very tweakable. No matter what, your very first journey through Dragonflight leveling will involve completing the MSQ. So if you only care about endgame raids, dungeons, and PvP, you can grind through the MSQ until you hit a wall, and when you do, complete side quests or farm dungeons until you overcome that wall. Then progress until you complete the MSQ and finally reach level 70. People who only care about that content can feel reassured that that's all they need to do. Everything else is optional. The rest of us will definitely care about side quests because they give reputation, which is super important in Dragonflight. Reputation gives us renown, which unlocks rewards and opens up endgame activities for more reputation. It's linked to the weekly turn-ins that ask for quite a bit of rep farming, And I bet that somewhere out there is a guy that has this mathematical golden path to maximizing your rep gains by, using a human character and using the upcoming Darkmoon Fair buff. Spoiler alert, that's not exactly my style, but I'm going to talk about that later. Let's talk about dragon riding for a bit. You're going to learn how to dragon ride just a few legs into the zone, and from here, you've got some choices to make. Do you want to immediately upgrade your dragon riding, or keep leveling? There's no right answer, really. Beta testers and people who can immediately get the hang of dragon riding could easily get the glyphs that they need in about half an hour or so. Although it's easy to slack off or be distracted running into treasures, rares, or resources. People who have gathering professions on their first character are also heavily incentivized to power up their dragon riding for more uptime. But no doubt, there's going to be a healthy number of people who will not only be dragon riding for the first time, they're gonna struggle with it at first. So I'm bringing this up because I want to reassure you that no, you don't have to feel pressured to get all these dragon riding glyphs as if it's going to feel required for leveling or even endgame. So take your time to learn. If you have a friend, you can also ride along with them. All dragon riding mounts can basically be multi-seaters. Players can enable that functionality by talking to a dragon riding trainer. Whatever the case, if you're going to farm up glyphs straight away, the best tip that I have to offer is to only worry about the first 40 glyphs, leaving 8 to be found. 40 glyphs is a lot, but it's going to take you all the way to the bottom of the tree, and at the end, pick up At Home Aloft, which generates 1 vigor every 5 seconds when you're flying at max speed. This, in my opinion, gives you the best bang for your buck. I mentioned this before, although I did not test it myself, but it appears that as early as level 68 and after the MSQ is completed, dailies and world quest content should be available. If so, and you're a speed demon who blazed through this at the start of the expansion, there's a tiny chance you'll be able to get a bit of extra credit in before the first official reset. The bounty made it clear that weekly rewards would not be available until the first regular reset in each region. Sorry, Americans. But it's not entirely clear if the same goes for World Quest or dailies. I'm not pressuring you to rush, but if you are anyway, keep a lookout on your map as soon as you finish that MSQ. Identify any World Quests that are about to expire and knock those out as fast as you can. By this time, you'll also have a few renown levels in you, some closer to leveling up than others. This part won't make too much sense because you haven't gone through the motions yet, but here's a taste of what your weekly routine is going to be like. For the purpose of reputation, make sure that you pick up the weekly quest in town. Knock out every world quest that you see, since those eventually go away. And then look at your renown tracks. If you see something that seems close to leveling, consider completing side quest content related to that faction. Dailies and world quests often give reputation to more than one faction, but in general, you rep up with the Dragon Scale Expedition in the Waking Shores and the Azure Span. Centaur rep is mostly in the Onarn Plains. Teskar rep is in the Azure Span, and the Valdrakken Accord rep is earned pretty much everywhere, but basically in Thaldraszus. As we move into later weeks of the expansion, more activities, world quests, and dailies will unlock via Renown, and you'll start to get an idea of how to optimize your rep gains a little bit better, but we'll save that for next week. Let's talk about the first few days of rep farming. Odds are this information is also going to be a little bit out of date, probably flawed, but I think it's worth sharing. The way I see it, early rep farming is going to be fairly critical for the mid to long-term enjoyment of profession-minded characters and alts. Reaching Renown levels 10 and 20 will give a big rep multiplier that works account-wide, meaning that it would be advantageous to rep up fast and deliberately on your main. So here's what I mean. Side quest content gives pretty big rep gains, as do weekly events. Dailies and world content, not so much. And also early on, you'll get perks that let you find tokens to turn in for a slow but continuous rep grind. Also, the Darkmoon Fair is happening this coming weekend. If the rep buff from the Darkmoon Fair works, that's a bonus that's worth thinking about. Here's a possible plan of attack, should you choose to take it. While leveling, make sure you reach Renown level 2 as soon as you can with every faction. That's going to mean completing side quests in the faction appropriate zone until you reach level 2, then you can stop until later. Odds are you'll get a bunch of extra rep from the MSQ anyway, proving that I'm obviously not coming at this with mathematical perfection. Renown level 2 lets you find treasures on the ground to pick up for small rep gains. The sooner you get this perk, the better. The thing is to not turn in these tokens for rep, at least not yet. Wait for the Darkmoon Fair, get the rep bonus, and if it works, turn everything in for a modest gain. If this bonus doesn't work, it's hardly the end of the world, but at least we tried. Here's some extra things to look out for while leveling. There's a good likelihood of there being bugs or bottlenecks that prevent you from progressing temporarily. It's going to be irritating, you're going to take to Twitter or whatever to complain, so you do you. But if those situations happen, keep a few things in mind while you're waiting for issues to be resolved. You need to switch to alts to start gaining rest experience after the expansion launches. It's not a huge deal, but well, some of you have like dozens of alts. Like I said, side quests are important depending on your long-term goals. If you're going to knock them out eventually, oh, why not now? If the issue seems to be really bad, you can gather as well. Hopefully you'll have at least dragon riding unlocked. It and any dragon riding glyphs that you found are credited across the account. And speaking of dragon riding, you can always zip around and collect glyphs, maybe while finding some treasures along the way, just be careful. And at this point, really, the world is your oyster. If you want reputation, just check your map for activities. Each faction has a spiffy little icon that you can mouse over to see if you have stuff to do or have tokens to turn over. Don't underestimate the information from those map icons either, those activities are part of what's going to be your weekly routine. Primal Invasion events might begin as soon as this week as well. They're activities with tough mobs that you can farm when they're active for currency to buy some early endgame gear if dungeons aren't your thing. Although I say for progression-minded folk, don't worry about these too much unless you run out of things to do. Also, there may be a short questline to earn your first Spark of Ingenuity. This is an epic reagent used to make endgame gear. Since you start off with only one, it's going to be up to you to decide what piece of gear you want to have crafted, if any. I have a feeling that most are going to want to go for weapons, and I predict that the crafting community is going to lean towards that direction too. As the client who's using these sparks to get things made, you'll only need to worry about providing the bare minimum materials. Don't worry about quality at all. That's something to rethink as we get into the season. I'm going to get into gearing in a separate guide, so here's some bullet points for you to screenshot and to share with your friends and rivals. Skip out on side quests if you're not interested in world content. Otherwise, focus on making sure that you reach Renown level 2 in all the factions by the time you hit max level and finish the main story quest. Powering up your dragon riding is a pretty good idea, but if you think it's going to be more of a distraction, don't worry about it. Once you're done with the MSQ, consider holding off on starting dailies and world quests until the first reset, and then you can pick up the weekly, unless there happen to be world quests that are about to expire. As the week goes on, make sure you complete the weekly and consider trying to knock out all the side quests in every zone for rep, and don't forget to utilize the Darkmoon Fair buff. It may not be the most optimal way to farm, but you'll at least have a big chunk of rep farming out of the way, in case you're taking time off to binge. This guide might not be making the most out of the rep game, but you are making the most out of your limited time. Just a few more things since this is technically the weekly reminder video. The listed PvP brawl is Packed House in case you're feeling violent. Enjoy the dungeons while you can because there are 4 that you're not going to be seeing much of unless you regularly run the daily heroic. Algathar Academy, Ruby Life Pools, the Azure Vault, and the Nockhood Offensive are the dungeons to pay special attention to during the preseason. Maybe get familiar with these dungeons before the season starts when you're asked to link your KSM so you can get into a +7. And that's gonna be it for now. I tried to cover most of what I could, but the devil's in the details. If you have any additional tips, tricks, or corrections to share, please send them over in the comments. We're all here to help each other out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and catch us on Twitch. We'll be live for the launch, we're doing giveaways, and I'm bringing the coffee. So I'll see you on the Dragon Isles. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.